you're not able to progress those negotiations because the government aren't listening, then you have a union behind you that are actually going to take action and not put up with it, and that you go in with some teeth.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of the people I've spoken to in the past about industrial action, and certainly at the last ballot, had kind of said, I joined the RCN, I don't want to do that, I don't want to move away from my patients, I don't want to do that. And the ballot, it wasn't enough for us to go out on strike. And I was of the mind then, yeah, absolutely. I think now that the tide is turning, and the emotion is there, that people have said, no, this is enough now, and now is the time for us as a college to capitalise on that, on the feelings of our members, and to say now, we have had enough, and that there is a momentum, and we need to push that. Andrea, did you want to say something? And then Naomi and Mark. Oh, Andrea, unmute.
Okay, can you hear me? The first thing was, Maggie mentioned the public in a summary before, and where I do think the public would have a role to play with this is that if the government bring to the table the most atrocious deal like they did last time, we gave them a gift by our organisation recommending that. The term they used was, this is the best that can be achieved by negotiation. And the recommendation was to accept. Now, I've got to say to you, I think that was not the right decision. And I thought that at the time. Because if we'd rejected the pay offer, the government would have been forced to go out to the public and say why they'd only offered the 3%, which was what it was for registered nurses, most of them. And I think that we gave them a huge publicity opportunity, which they took, because by lumping everything together and giving an uplift to the people on £7.50 an hour, which was 17 or 23%, but 23% of £7.50 is not a lot. And they were going to have to do that anyway, because the band one was going to be eroded by the government legislation. So we mustn't allow them to do that. With regards to strike action, nurses get very emotive over strike action. We're in the minority in England, having never taken strike action as we would understand it, walking out. Nobody anywhere in the world, nurses, walk out and leave patients. They do not leave patients. No patient suffers because of nurses taking action. You've only got to look at America, California, Australia, and the Scandinavian countries, who are past masters at calling the government to account and making them stand up. So I wouldn't be frightened about that. But what I would say, and I've said this before, but I think the time is different, is even if you would never take industrial action, when the RCN calls a ballot, you have to say you will, because it gives them the armour to go into a deal and say, our nurses are now going to take industrial action. And I'm telling you, we wouldn't be out for more than 3 hours. Our midwives did it. And the midwives are all paid on band 6 as a starting point. And we just need to have the courage of our convictions and give the RCN the message and the tools, because without us, they've got nothing to negotiate. If you get a ballot that returns 5%, even if they all say they'll take action, it's not enough. So we've got to be firm and use our brains. We're smart. They've just got to believe that we'll do it, even if we won't. They've got to believe it.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Naomi, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate basically what Andrea said, much more eloquently than I could have done. But also, we need to factor in that since the last pay deal, I've spoken in my area to lots of members of the RCN and people who have since left the RCN because of the way that pay deal was structured and the way that it was broadcast out to us all. And lots of us, it was a complex issue and it was explained badly, I think. And we've lost members because of that. So I think especially with what Andrea was saying earlier regarding the length of time we've been fighting for safe staffing and pay and everything. Now we've got public support. I think we need to act quick, we need to act firm, but we need to be clear to our members and past members of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. Because we're hemorrhaging members because of the pay, and we can't afford at the moment to lose any more. We are going to lose people as COVID disappears and we go back to some form of normality. We're going to lose that extra support. But I think now we've got the public on our side, we need to act fast, and maybe we need to do something different that we've not done before. I'm not suggesting, I agree with what Andrea's saying about saying yes to a ballot to give us that extra bit of power and maybe not necessarily going on strike. But I think we need to approach this completely differently to how we've done before to get any sense of a result. And we need to do it quick while we've still got public support. Because I think Andrea said earlier in an earlier comment as well, you know, it's the public are fickle. We're all very fickle. You know, something else is going to come up and we will probably, you know, not be public enemy number one, but we won't be held in such high regard as we are now. So we need to act.
Absolutely, Naomi, I completely agree. Mark and then Mike, please.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I agree with you, Andy, as well. And I feel that it's just an emotional aspect of it. What we've done so far, considering over the past few months, how we've actually stood up to the plate, even people coming out of retirement and things like that, stood up to the plate. And really, if that's not good enough, you know, to sit down and really consider all this, what the hell is? You know what I mean? There comes a point where enough is enough, and I do agree that I do sense. Although initially it wasn't for this, I do think that industrial action and striking is probably a road that we may have to go down, because I really honestly don't think this government are going to listen to anything else. I know it sounds very negative to say that, but I don't think it will. You know what I mean? I think it's always been the case. We've been down this road for many years, and it comes to a point, as I say, with the Northern Ireland message that somehow industrial action may have to happen with no choice. We've got to think about the future, also our student nurses and things like that. And people have died on the front line here. You know what I mean? Nurses, doctors have died on the front line here because of incompetent government. And so enough is enough. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
So all my work in life as a nurse, I come from an industrial background, working in local governments and working in Tesco's and stuff like that, and I've always believed that the power of a trade union, it is collective. If you can't make a reasonable voice heard, then you have to take action. The big problem in England, which I don't think people really understand, is that this government changed the labour laws for public sector workers, and as it presently stands and the way we're organised within the RCN, we will never ever get to vote which will take us out on strike because of the limits that this government has put onto us. So there's two things that we need to do, and I've said this within the RCN. As we say, start a pay campaign, we need to start a campaign to radicalise our members. The second part is not taking place. The other thing is that the issue of rebanding, and a lot of you have come on to talk about, you know, how we're not rewarded enough for what we've always paid profession in the NHS, and that's exactly what I've been saying for the last 10 or 15 years. I've been changed since 1995, but that valuing by the employer in the first and foremost, rather than waiting for a big national movement and stuff like that, it's got to come trust by trust, word by word, taking on individual trust, because that's what you're going to have to do. And that's real tough trip. And I can tell you now is that I've been supporting students in one trust, they just uplifted 12 band 6s to band 7. In another trust, 50 band 2s and up-banded them to band 3s. In my own hospital, I helped a group of staff to get to be rebanded from a band 7 to an 8A. And there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. But the thing is listening to the stewards, the people on the ground floor who are negotiations experts who are doing it. Our voice is not being heard in the RCN. We need to change that. So when I talk about politics and Parliament, it's also politics between us, our organisation that governs us. We need to change the RCN round. And again, I heard everyone talking about recruitment. The same side of the coin as recruitment is the word is retention, and we are absolutely appalling at retention. If you've seen the BBC programme of a morning on TV called Saving NH Nurses, and from what I've seen of it up to now, it's a public job because I don't hear anyone talking about trade unions. I don't hear them being represented by trade unions, and everything seems to be done magically by a matron or by a nurse manager or a HR manager. In practice, that all these things are hard-fought issues within the workplace. We need to change our organisation. You know, we've changed and we know what we want, but our organisation hasn't changed, and they don't understand how they need to change.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. So the sound is still a bit wobbly there for a minute. So Mike was saying that nurses need to kind of group together and to challenge their own trusts in order to look at their rebanding. And I know you've had some success with that, Mike, and I agree with that. And the perception is that there's the person and then the job, and we kind of need to be able to look at things and say this is the job that I am performing, and actually that should be a different band. And I agree with that. But I think, as Andrea had said earlier on, the midwives, you know, went on strike, and they down tools for 4 hours, and in that time no patient was put at risk, no babies were at risk, and the patients were looked after. But for those 4 hours got their whole profession an uplift to band 6. And I think that there needs to be a national or a blanket recognition of the skills that we have as a profession, and this, the lowest paid of the graduate professions, that needs to change, and that needs to come up, and we all need to be kind of band 6, and then everything else needs to change in those levels, and that is a massive undertaking. And while to take that as kind of groups and start is monumental kind of uptaking. So I just wanted to kind of, I agree with you, Mike, but I think there needs to be something across the board. And I want Fallon, you had something to say there.
Yeah, I totally agree with what everybody's saying about taking action. I was just going back to Andrea's point about the midwives being made up to band 6s. And I know myself at the minute, I'm kind of struggling between that, trying to go up from a band 5 to a band 6, and it just seems that what they're actually expecting from me is to be a manager, and that's not really what I want to do. I want to be there face to face with my patients, and I think that they should be recognising what we're actually doing as a band 5. I've been going into interviews saying I'm practically doing what would be expected at a band 6 level, and they're knocking me back saying, no, actually we expect this, we want you to, you know, basically be a manager. So I totally agree that we need to make the public aware of the inequalities in nursing, because we're just going to keep getting sort of batted down, and all the support we've had recently, it's already starting to, you know, reduce, and I think we'll just get swept back under the carpet eventually. So I agree with what everybody's saying.
Can I just comment on this? And that's a common thing that gets said to me, that nurses go in and they have this discussion that they should be up to a band 6. But Agenda for Change is about scoring points. Unless you go and take the argue your case against the structure that's been agreed, I'm not going to listen to you saying that you're doing the same role as a band 6. If I was your senior divisional manager, I would love the fact that you're doing all this work, because it means I don't have to replace someone on a band 6. But the issue is that if we're going to change things, there's 2 routes. We take the public, we take the public political route, which is a national issue, and you've got to take the local route. There's no way out of this at all, and you have to go in there and you have to fight. You can't do it on your own. You need, you know, what I'm talking about in the RCN, the RCN needs to engage at a ward level in agenda for change, which we've never done since we introduced it in 2003. And the only way we do that is that the stewards that we've got now, we need to give them more skills on how to negotiate agenda for change locally. Secondly, we need members to actually start to stand up. Our members talk about this change and stuff like that, but change won't come unless you stand to be a student, and you need students in the workplace to share this burden out. And also is that for me, I'm 66 now, and I'm coming to the end of my working life and stuff like that. And very soon, I won't be around to be making these arguments in the workplace. And it's the next generation of nurses that have got to recognise that and step up to the mark. And that's exactly what my uncles used to say to me when I was a youngster. And Liverpool Trade Union. It's about, you've got to stand up to the mark. This is the point now where we don't keep going around in circles talking about why we failed and stuff like that. It's a new direction. We need to step up to the mark.
Absolutely, Mike. I think you need to write a book of trade union stewards in Liverpool. Maggie.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I agree with everything Mike's been saying. The problem is today is lack of facility time release, lack of training for our reps on agenda for change, so that they can be doing the panels and helping with job descriptions. All our members need help with putting together up-to-date job descriptions. Then the big problem is they take it into the work manager, and the manager looks at the pound signs that this is going to incur and says, well, I don't want you doing that, I don't want you doing that, and I don't want you doing that. Take out the job description. But the problem is they're the people that are still doing that. So again, we're being blackmailed into the care that we're giving. So that's my rant over.
I think, and I agree. So I've been around for a long time, but I've actually only been qualified for 3 years. And there's a lot of people in my position where I don't really kind of know the details of the agenda for change, or actually what it is my role is meant to be. So there's this, you are the nurse and now you've got your pin and this is what you do, and you kind of bob along with that. Now if you look at, I'm showing my age now, but when I was a child and I was taken along to my local A&E because I was asthmatic, I would wait for a doctor to come and cannulate me and to do all those things, and our roles have massively changed. And since agenda for change came in, and that document is now no longer it's no longer fit for practice. So the things that I do now, years ago, I'd be waiting for a doctor to do, and it's the kind of maxi nurse, mini doctor kind of argument. But as those things all change, and that needs to change with us, and agenda for change hasn't kept up for that. So I personally, I don't want to go along the ward route of band 6 or band 7, because that is now taking it into management. And the way it is, and I love my ward seniors, they're amazing, but they are stepped away from patient care because they've got that management role, and I don't want to do that. So then for me, the way to progress up those bands is to become advanced nurse practitioner or a nurse clinician, and it's that way. And so you seem to have kind of split in a different direction, and I think that's to do with, well, lots of things in the way that we train our nurses. But I think that people don't understand the agenda for change, and that the nurse job that was so many years ago is completely different. And so it's not about what do I physically do as a nurse and what do I do during my shift. It's the expectations on that document and what is actually there, and that they don't marry. And the reality is that the things that we do as band 5 nurses should be hitting all those points, and then up banding, and it should be kind of gone along.
Mike, can I come back on some of that, Carmel?
Yeah.
The problem is, in 2004, our job descriptions were made out. These haven't been updated since then, but our roles have increased. So we're learning the roles that have developed over this time, because a lot of it is peer learning. So we're doing all these extra tasks that we're not being paid for. An agenda for change is absolutely fine if you're an allied health professional because they get the rebanding. They don't have the same numbers, so therefore there's not the same restrictions on them to move up, because it's only going to cost a couple of quid. Whereas if one band 5 on a ward gets moved up, all the band 5s will get moved up. They can't do one without the rest. So yes, we should be able to stay clinical, but we need to be recognised for the job that we're doing right now, and that's what we need to be getting across. Sorry.
Just come back.
Mike and then Ruth.
On Agenda for Change. Agenda for Change today is every bit relevant to employment as it was designed it in 1995, introduced it in 2003. The problem has been the trade unions have invested in their reps to make sure we hold employees to account, and the employers have never wanted it because, and if you know all the things that you said, you know, and this comes back to Fallon's point, is that Agenda for Change is designed to pay you for the job that you do. It doesn't pay you for just being a management scheme. It's not a management scheme at all. It's about practice for nurses. It's about practice. And just because you become a band 6 doesn't mean you change your job. You keep doing the same job that you're actually doing, and you get repaid for it, and you get rebanded for it. And it doesn't mean going off into management. Band 7 for nurses is not about management. Band 8A and 8B and 8C, where you see all these nurse consultants and AMPs and physicians assistants, they're not being banded as managers. There comes a point where the two professions of general management and clinical practice actually divulge, and you go on that professional clinical practice part of Agenda for Change, and everyone goes the other way. And as nurses, we need to recognize that that's real power. But the problem is, we get sucked into general management. How many directors of nursing do you know who actually just do the job of director of nursing without getting pushed onto domestic services or and all sorts of things? Our nursing profession is for a lot of employees, it's just a dumping ground for all the stuff that general managers don't want to do. And I think we need to change our view of it. Agenda for Change is hugely powerful if you know how to use it.
I think that's the issue, Mike, is that we don't know how to use it, and you're right that we do need maybe our stewards have more training on that. Can I buzz Ruth in? You've had your hand up for a little while.
Catty 50 CC motorcycle.
Thank you. And I was going to say that one of my concerns is around grade slippage, and I think it is in linked to Agenda for Change. And I've noted quite recently I'm being concerned about the rise of clinical nurse specialist posts that are being advertised as a band 6, and I feel that actually, what are we doing and not calling out and saying that if you're going to be a clinical nurse specialist and you're going to work with that level of skill and that level of autonomy, then you need to be paid through the nose for it. And we can't allow that to happen. Otherwise, we lose our career structure.
Absolutely. Andrea? Andrea, you're muted.
Doing that, I'm really sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I know that Mike puts forward a very strong argument for the rebanding at local level. And I think that it is a reasonable, acceptable thing to do with stewards. However, there are not enough of them. There's not enough of them who are skilled, who can take that on board because of training. And no amount of training is going to achieve what actually I want. Because it isn't about what's happening at Alderhay or the Royal or in Devon, and if that's their pockets. When our negotiators went into the last pay award, they went in and they negotiated change. It was a change I didn't like, but they negotiated change. So to my view, what we're asking for with regards to the band 6 as a minimum is a strategic fight to take one piece of a structure that needs to be brought up to date. And the arguments for that are that the government has changed, the profile, the jobs. They brought in associate nurses that sit between our allied health professionals, our support network in nursing, which is very important. But what it's doing is it's marginalising registered nurse roles. And they are becoming the meat in the sandwich. They're neither one thing nor the other. So Band 5 nurses, who are a huge proportion of clinical nurses, are constantly being asked to do more for less, with less. And I think that we have to have a very, very clear strategy that Band 6 pay grade is the minimum. And the argument is that our skills have altered. All Band 5 nurses fit that profile. And that without that, we won't accept any form of negotiation in terms of change, terms, conditions, and reprofiling. Agenda for Change was great when it came in. It's out of date. It's designed for lower pay bands, and it works brilliantly for them. But the majority of our members are not those people. And you've got to represent the people that pay your bills. So that's the bit on that. The other thing is that as nurses, we allow ourselves to get boxed into corners, and I will give a very clear message to every single nurse. Every nursing role matters. Every nurse matters. But we have to stand united, because when we start fighting over my job's more important than that, I'm more advanced than that, the mental health nurses don't do the same job. Every nurse should be saying the same thing. Nurses are fabulous. They're highly skilled. They're highly educated. They can shift from one thing to another without any difficulty. And they can also run the government, because I can tell you, many, many nurses have got more qualifications than those guys who were running our country. And we can stand for their positions, but none of them can come in and look after a patient. So let's get that message out. We're no longer messing around. We're a united profession in a single course. We're going to make sure that nurses are recognised, rewarded, and if they don't do that, we will revolt. That's the message from me.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we need to take across, and that now is the time. I think that nursing as a professional, or we as a college, recognise that something needs to be done, that we need our people to be looked after, to be remunerated properly. We are an educated, skilled bunch of people who are fabulous, and that is it must be high on the agenda to be recognised. And I think now is the time. You're right. Now is the time. Nurses Raw, as we stand up and fight for ourselves. And every time that we fight for ourselves, we're fighting for our patients, and that's what we're all here for.
I think on that note, that's probably a good way to end our first, because that's what this is. This is just our first discussion on pay. This is just opening the dialogue. We need to make sure that we are available for people to come and speak to us, to keep this conversation going, to get the buzz out there, because this negotiation will start. I know we've not been able to hear Mike very well throughout the conversation, but Mike has got a TUC meeting, and he will go and take what we've been talking about today, and rest assured, because he is a fantastic negotiator and he's well valued within our branch, that he will take the message that we're all sending there today. So we will, Ruth, did you want to just come in there?
I did. I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I feel really fired up, and that's a really sign of a good meeting. May I take a photograph and put it on our branch website? Would everybody be happy with that?
Yeah.
Can I just do it now? Does everyone look attractive? Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll stop the recording there, and this will be available online for people to watch. Share away, and let's just make sure that we do this again.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll arrange that maybe in a couple of months. Mark, did you just want to say something?
Helen, I think you've got my email, haven't you? No, for that link to
what I'll do is, once I've finished recording, I'll just come back to you, Mark, okay? We'll
okay, thank you.
this,
I need one last remark.
Yeah.
I just want to make a quote from our blessed Saint John Lennon of Liverpool, and in one of the songs he once said, You know, we all want a revolution. Hey, we all want to change the world. Well, it's conversations like this is when we start revolutions and start changing the NHS and RCN.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you very much.